All right, our recording is in progress. So that's my cue to officially welcome all of you to our afternoon of learning. Thanks everybody for being on here. And for those of you that are some of the regulars, I see, some of our friends up in Michigan and down in Alabama and other places that we get to catch up with. I see Reagan and Lisa on here. We have an Alabama limit of 2, so no more people from Alabama. It could just get, things could just go off the rails. But for those of y'all that have been here before, y'all know that these sessions are relatively informal and we like to record them so you can share them as needed and freely. Other folks of you may be viewing this a little bit later on if you couldn't join us right at 3. But this is our student engagement team. Just wanted to stay connected with you. I always, tell folks that at Phi Theta Kappa, not only are we, I guess now almost 104 years old, but we are big. We're at almost 1,300 different community colleges and chapters. And then we partner with over 1,000 universities, and we're found in 29 different regions and many different countries. So, sometimes it's hard for us to kind of connect. And we just like to have these sessions so that y'all can hear from us, ask us any questions you want to ask about our student learning programs. And we're happy to be here and talk to y'all today. Our topic today is about something that I'm personally really passionate about. And if you are someone who has not engaged our programs in a while, I want you to kind of listen with open ears and open minds and just really consider how our PTK Edge programs might fill gaps for students who need it. Let me speak completely freely. I will just do something that's so rare, in these moments. I'm just going to tell the truth. And let me remind you that our system of higher education, when it first started in this country many years ago, was built by and for really, really rich people. That's a fact. And I'll put my PhD in history and just let you know that is absolutely a fact. And our movement for educational equity, our movement for community colleges to ensure that everybody has the ability to get a degree or a credential to pursue their dreams and to find out what their truest calling is, and then to contribute to our economies and our country and our world, that happened little by little by little. And so as the community college movement grew up, we at Phi Theta Kappa grew up along with it. And we have found some areas where we can really partner with our institutions that we work with to ensure that students are served. And so what we do in our PTK Edge courses, as you'll hear about today, is we try to fill gaps that maybe a student is going to community college, getting some credits, doing pretty well, kind of, really making some progress educationally, but maybe they don't know how to transfer. Maybe they don't know about how to do a good job interview. Maybe they really need to learn the basics of research. We see that a lot. That's something lots of people need. What you're going to learn about today and hear from our wonderful student engagement staff is how you as a PTK advisor can benefit from and can utilize these PTK Edge courses to serve as many students as possible. And in so doing, I would argue to use a Patty Van Adderism to leave it better than you found it, to make sure that at your chapter and in your college and the students you interact with, they're better off for their engagement with all of us. So having said that, I am going to just very briefly just intro our student engagement team that's here today and then turn it over to Jennifer Stanford. So we've got Susan Edwards, I think, out there. Susan, are you also going to see? I think you're out there somewhere. And if Susan is not out there, she's Susan Edwards. You'll engage with her at some point. She's our AVP for honors programs and undergraduate research, working on honors in action and leadership development and research. We also have Jennifer Stanford, our Associate VP of Program Implementation, who's also on the call and waving, who works with our student leaders in the IO campaign, runs our Hallmark Awards process, and takes calls from me about 15 times a day, among other things. We also have Reagan Chastain, our brilliant curriculum designer, who I'm sure gets a lot of emails because I'm always like, you need to connect with Reagan if you're interested in best practices on student learning broadly, but especially if you're thinking about online courses and how these can be structured in a way that is inclusive for all students. Reagan is our expert, and you definitely should connect with her. We've got Ryan Martin, the gentle lady from Arizona, out there on what I call it all the West Coast, here in Texas. I know it's not a coast, but out there in Arizona, who's one of our chapter outreach and development coordinators, working with advisors and chapter leaders to help you build your chapter from the ground up and keep it going little by little. And then we have, people have told me you're not supposed to call people legends because then they may think that you're making a comment on their age. But I have to say, being a legend is not about your age. It's just about what you've done. And Patty Van Adam, legendary, and she worked so hard to make sure that you, the chapter advisors, get opportunities to stay engaged, and she's the one who will be kind of running the meeting today. But having said all that, I see probably in the comments it's like, get Blake off there, move on. So okay, I'm going to move on, but I want to now turn it over to Jennifer Stanford to give you just a little bit of an update on what's going on with one of the most important things we do, the election of our 2022-2023 international officers. Jennifer Stanford, the floor is yours. Thank you, everybody, for being here today.
All right. Thank you so much, Blake. Yes, I'm here with a very brief public service announcement, just to remind our advisors that the preliminary election, as Blake said, is happening today. The polls opened earlier this morning. They will close at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And the great thing about these polls is that it's open for all chapters, but you do have to have a designated voting delegate. So we know that many of you, probably, I'm sure all of you on this call, have reported a voting delegate, and hopefully your voting delegate has already cast their ballots. But if they haven't, please reach out to them. If they didn't receive the email, my colleague Reagan Chastain is actually the person who is the voting delegate contact person. She just put her email address up there in the chat. But we will make sure that they get the email, even if we have to get an alternate email. We've done that a few times today. Sometimes those college servers will block our email. So we definitely want every chapter to participate in the preliminary election. Every chapter gets a voice, and then we narrow that down to the semifinalists who then go on to campaign during PTK Catalyst. And that's when only the chapters that are registered either virtually or in person for PTK Catalyst will make the final determination of our 2022-23 international officer team. So just wanted to share that, make sure that you're all, your chapters are participating. And if you have any questions, certainly you can put them in the chat, and Reagan and I are very happy to answer any questions. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Patty.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate it. So hi, everybody. I'm glad you're here today. We're going to talk about, I think after Blake was done talking, I was like, well, there's our presentation. We can go home now. But I think what we're going to look at today is, PTK Edge and its benefits and how it, helps the individual member. But our focus today is more on not only the individual member, but how you can use the PTK Edge programs to increase chapter engagement, right? If you are using them at different points throughout the year to provide leadership development and to make your officer team feel a little bit more confident in what they're doing. And also as the chapter progresses towards honors and action. So that's how we're going to look at it today. We're just going to do a little brief introduction of it. We'll talk about each of the edges and pick out some really important learning outcomes within each of the edges that really go back towards increasing engagement, increasing the engagement, not only for members, but as a chapter. And then share some ideas and activities that we've located all over the place, either by talking with you as advisors or within the advisor curriculum plan. In level 3, there's a whole section on PTK Edges. And if you haven't had a chance to look at it, or even if you have, go back in and take a look at the discussion boards under PTK Edge and how some of the different ideas that are starting to come around, how chapter advisors are using the edges as it relates to chapter engagement, and also, you know, the benefit of what the benefits that the students receive after they participate in it. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. She's going to just talk briefly about each of the edges and some of the things for the advisor that may be new with us today. Ryan?
All right. So hello, everyone. Sorry, I was trying to make me at the same height as my screens. So today we're going to talk a little bit about PTK Edges and how it benefits you as an advisor. So kind of that professional development that you need to help get you prepared for your role as an advisor and also in your professional career too, because I think we can use a little of the edges just for ourselves when we're thinking about what we do every day at work. So with our professional edge, curriculum for advisors, you still get to go through all of the different edges. So there's 5 of them. So competitive edge, you have transfer edge, employment edge, research edge, healthcare edge. And you're probably like, how do I get to these? How can and especially for you new advisors that have not taken it, you're like, how do I get to this? How can I start working on this? You'll just go to getanedge.ptk.org. Or if you want to click through and learn a little bit about our ptk.org website, you'll go to ptk.org, over to benefits, then click on professional development courses. So some of the cool things about when you're taking the PTK Edge is you're completing those modules at your own pace and on your own time. So you don't have to complete them all right then and there. You don't have to do all of the edges at one time, and it's not timed. There's no quizzes. Well, it might be some quizzes, but they're not like graded quizzes. There's not going to be a big failed or anything like that. It allows you just to see what you missed and go back and take it again. You can complete those modules in any order, which is really cool. So you don't have to take, unit 1 or module 1 first to get to module 2. You don't have to do that. You can take the ones that you only need. So kind of like Liberty Mutual, you get the edges that work for you and do the modules that's going to work best for you. And then you can enroll in multiple courses at once. You don't have to, just like I said, you don't have to just do one at a time. And then what's really cool is you can continue to revisit them after graduation or after you're finished. You can continue to revisit them because sometimes we're like, what was that? What did it say? And you continue to go to that. So some benefits. Like I said, it's not just for professional development, but it also could be for personal development. And as advisors, I think we need a little bit of both. We need personal and professional development because that's how we help our students. That's how we help our members. Your learning is extended beyond the classroom. So this allows you to think outside of the box, especially for some of us that are student services staff. It helps us to think outside of that classroom. It helps us to develop meetings or sessions or events that work well with our students that's not classroom based. Opportunity to show initiative, digital credentials. So you get a badge that says you completed the PTK Edge courses. You can add it onto your resume. And then the one amazing thing is this is free. It's free to you, it's free to your students, it's free to our members and to alumni. So that's a really great benefit right there. All right, so right now, what's amazing is we have several universities that have offered transfer credit for PTK Edge courses in our Leadership Development Studies course. So I don't know if there's any of you that have taken the Leadership Development Studies course, if you've taken it as just a you wanted to take the courses and get to know a little bit about it, or if you became certified to teach the course, now there are universities that offer this as a credit. So we have Eastern Oregon University. A member may earn 1 transfer credit for completing up to 4 of the PTK Edge courses, and they're waiting on confirmation for the Healthcare Edge, but then completing our LDS course will earn them 2 credits. And then if a student takes our LDS credit course through their college, they may receive more credits. So students can receive these credits through Eastern Oregon University's program as a significantly discounted rate of $50 per credit. That's really unheard of at a university. So $50 per credit hour is great. And then all students need to do is make their request to their EOU, which is Eastern Oregon University Transfer Advisor. And then at Southern New Hampshire University, you can see right here, there's Leadership Development Studies, you'll get 3 credits, Employment Edge, 3 credits, Competitive Edge, 2 credits, Research Edge, 2 credits. So they're offering these substantial transfer credits too for PTK online courses, which is really amazing. And then you have the University of Arizona Global Campus. They're also offering the transfer credits. So LDS, 4 credits, and then PTK Edge for completing 5 PTK Edge courses, you'll get 3 credits. And then at Thomas Edison State University, LDS, Leadership Development Studies, you'll get 3 credits. And then for PTK Edge, another 3 credits. I don't know about you, but I wish I had some of these professional development courses that were credit-based that I could actually have as an elective or went towards my degree. So, which is really great for not just you as an advisor, but also for our members too.
Thanks, Ryan. I
You're
think
welcome.
one of the most exciting things out for the advisors that have been around for a while, you know, before all we had when we first started out with the edges, we had competitive edge, and the biggest thing that we would say to students, well, you can work to become a 5-star member and there's a pin, but now we have 5 edges, we have digital badges, we have, it goes way beyond the recognition that they can, you know, either with the pins or with the badges, and now they can turn it into, you know, potential credits, transfer credits to universities. I know just this time last year, there was only 2, now there's 4, and I'm sure there's going to be more as we move forward. I'm also aware of some community colleges that in the area, they're working towards giving credit for the completion of edges for their own programs, right? And so that's really exciting. So there's even more benefits to share with students as it relates to the credits than there ever was before to the edges as there have ever been. And so for those of you just joining and for those that are with us, I'm just going to really briefly go over the 5 edges. They're each created with its own purpose. The newest course, Healthcare Edge, explores the soft skills needed for those majoring in a healthcare field. But honestly, there's a level in the Healthcare Edge that is all about self-care, and it's good for everybody. So even if you aren't going to complete the entire course for Healthcare Edge, there's definitely something that everybody can take from that particular course. Competitive Edge, you know, that helps students strengthen soft skills needed in any profession. And I'm going to talk a little bit later on about how competitive edge is really that one that's really beneficial to new chapter officers, or maybe including it in chapter officer training or leadership development as you bring on new chapter officers. And we're going to show that how and why in a few minutes. Definitely wish I had transfer edge before I transferred to my 4-year university. Okay, we strongly encourage students who are planning to transfer to a 4-year institution complete transfer edge. And one of the things I see a lot of, you know, during spring break or winter break, students actually, you know, the chapter getting together as a group to complete transfer edge, all the students that know that they're going to be moving on and they work on it together. Definitely helpful, puts the power and the knowledge of transferring in their hands. Employment Edge, you know, everybody has to get a job eventually, and it can definitely help students successfully enter the workforce and how to build that resume, as Ryan talked about a few minutes ago. and to develop those research skills and prepare students to participate in honors and action projects, they should complete Research Edge. And I'm also going to talk about Research Edge as one of the edges that you can definitely use as a precursor or a prerequisite before starting honors and action, right? It's that tool. Before Research Edge wasn't there, it was left to the advisors to have to, teach that process of, what is an honors in action and how we start with research. Research Edge is that tool that you can say, look, we're going to get ready for our honors in action. And before we get started with that, or before we even look at the guide, take a look at Research Edge. It's 4 levels. It's real quick. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too. And along with the edges, we have another professional development that students can participate in, and that's leadership development. It's an entire course devoted to leadership development. And there are many, I'm just going to change the slide, that would help. There's so many topics in leadership development: leading by serving, ethical leadership, articulating a vision, and leading with goals. And when I look at all of those, and including the very first unit in leadership development, defining your leadership philosophy, I'm hearing all these things. I think chapter officers should take a look at it as they begin their year of service as an officer. It has all these other activities and skills within it where they can talk about practice team building strategies, and talk about how to work out the bumps when we're not in agreement on something. And when, as advisors, those are the things that we don't want to run into during the course of the year. So if we're proactive about it and we're giving students the opportunity to engage in these programs and this professional development, it'll help them as a chapter officer. But more importantly, when they go into the workforce and when they transfer over to another university, they will be ready. They will have these skills. These skills will be with them for forever. Talk a little bit about incorporating some of the PTK edges into some of the things that we normally do every day. I highly recommend, students will, if you ask a student, why did you accept membership? Well, I'm proud. It's my academics. I wanted the bling. I want to wear the bling. I want scholarship money. I want to transfer. And all that's true, right? All that can be really true, but I think we should also include at the time of recruitment a real emphasis on the professional development that Phi Theta Kappa offers to every member, and that it's free, and that it's on their, they can engage in it at their own time, and it's something that they'll have for as long as they're connected with the society. And I really think that it's such a a big plus when you're talking about, if you're at your table events, at your college events, have your officers know more about or have participated in some of the edges so that they can speak about it. I looked at one of these, quote from an advisor: EDGE programs are great recruitment tools as well as wonderful programs. The different EDGE programs appeal to different students, right? And we use them to recruit our students, especially during the summer when students have more downtime. And that's always something that is kind of like the elephant in the room. Like, how do we encourage them to do it when our students are so busy? But definitely keeping in mind the times that it's downtimes, right? In the summer, at the beginning of a semester, or in between. No level takes more than, would take days to do, right? And it's definitely something that can be done. But I totally believe that in your recruitment efforts on your campus, and to bring about awareness about the benefits of membership, the PTK Edge Courses should be a part of that. I've been hearing a lot from advisors in my travels and conversations about this. They're looking at this as a PTK member pathway, right? When a member accepts, comes to inductions, they accept they accept their membership, they come to induction, and they're like, now what? And there's that little bit of window where you can, grab their attention. And I'll be really honest, most of the time as a former advisor at inductions, I was scanning the room to say, okay, who's going to be an officer? Who's going to be an officer? Who's going to be an officer, right? Because it's what we were always looking to fulfill. But it's really important to be, okay, a member. Let's get you involved in PTK. And let's start with programs like the Edges, right? And have this some sort of a pathway to be an active member. And one of those steps is participating in the Edges. Perhaps coming up with some sort of a way that leads to us to celebrate the students that complete any of the Edges. My role as a regional coordinator and an advisor, I knew the more that I shared that students had completed an Edge, the more would do it, right? And then we would include different sorts of incentives for them to complete the Edges. And they love the recognition, and it's all part of it. And it does seem to blossom throughout the chapter when you're giving that recognition to a member. But celebrating the member of the month and officer of the month are ways that you can do that by creating a visual congratulations for the winners and posting them on your social media sites, right? You can also share this with your college's administration. Maybe they could put it on digital signage at your college. Anything that will bring the recognition to the student and also encourage others to learn more about it. And, bottom line, no matter, how busy they are, and they are taking the time to do that, it is important to recognize those hardworking members and officers. There is a great deal on the importance of intrinsic motivation. Small rewards can be motivating. And I honestly believe that the little rewards that we give and recognition really works to building a more engaged chapter where more students will want to be a part of it. So with competitive edge, as it relates to chapter officer leadership development, right? I, as an advisor, and I think Ryan will probably chime in too with this, and using these, when you sit down, they take the oath of office, and now what, right? Where do you begin? And your chapter probably has some things already in place for that, but if not, or if you'd like to change it up a little bit, I would encourage you to encourage your officers to complete a leadership development program that's created by you that includes competitive edge. Because if you look at competitive edge and some of the learning outcomes, if I'm looking at introduction to communication, sometimes we meet an officer and they wanted to be an officer, but they're not really confident in the way that they communicate, or have huge, gigantic speech anxiety. How can we help them feel more confident? That's taken care of in competitive edge. It gives them the opportunity to learn how to make great presentations and how to be active listeners too, right? A huge section in competitive edge is all about critical thinking, analytical thinking, creative thinking, critical reading, and decisiveness, right? What are the difference between all of those thinkings, right? And how do we go about it when we're making decisions, right? It gives the officers and members the opportunity to become more confident in what they're doing. And of course, equity, inclusion, right? What is diversity? How do we appreciate ethnic, cultural, and lifestyle differences? We want our officers to be able to be participating in and meeting the college's diversity, equity, inclusion statements. How to identify unconscious bias, confronting bigotry, and of course what inclusion is and how to go about it. So as chapter officers, I always felt that competitive edge was something that they should definitely take a look at. I never said you had to do it, but usually one of them would do it and it would make everybody else feel like they had to do it anyway. And then we would make a big deal about it, right? So competitive edge was definitely was the first step. And then I would move over to leadership development, right? Because I really think that to be a leader, you have to know what your leadership philosophy is. And that very first unit in the leadership development studies, defining a leadership philosophy, does two things, I think. It gets them to look at the leadership studies, right? Because they have to do that first unit, but it's all about them, right? In trying to define, recognize different leadership styles, and there's plenty of examples and different types of ways that they do it through TED Talks and readings and stuff like that. But they come to a point where they can write their own leadership philosophy statement. It's something that they can work towards and hold on and remember as they're leading the chapter. And then what also is really good is that after they're done that, they can host chapter members in that discussion, right, of Unit 1. What have they learned how to create a leadership philosophy, and how their leadership philosophies work to build a team with shared values. So I think it's really good in those beginning chapter meetings, once the officer team has been settled, that this is maybe where you start out with, right? You give them, have them look at competitive edge, definitely do Unit 1 in leadership development, and that also engages them and they get more into it. The deeper you go into leadership development studies, the more fun it is, because then, and there are also just plain activities. If you weren't going to use the leadership development, there's a whole section in the activity guide for chapter leaders on team building, and it's using the value sorts cards, right, to value sorts exercise to determine the team's top 5 collective values that will guide their decision making throughout the year. And that there's a link, and we will share this PowerPoint, but there's the link to the activity in the activity guide. It's just using those cards, they're all right there. But it's another way of trying to get you're started on the same page, right, by doing this leadership development. And last but not least, because we don't want to put our chapter officers through a whole lot, or definitely research edge, right? Because you're going to have an officer that's going to be that honors and action officer, and you want to be able to talk about the importance of honors and action to your chapter membership, because you're busy too, and how do we go about it? And definitely research edge, right? Under academic investigation section, they'll be able to explain the purpose of an honors and action and the role academic research plans into honors and action project development, how to utilize and determine sources, and creating awareness of importance of seeking out multiple perspectives, turning that research into action. And then finally, impact, reflection, and writing an honors and action homework entry, how to go about that whole reflection process, and how to do that. When they look at research edge, they'll be able to combine everything that they've experienced through competitive edge and leadership development to bring that all together. And I'm thinking when we're talking about the development of chapter officers, at the very minimum, exposing them to those 3 programs. Some more ideas, just to how to use competitive edge and research edge, chapter officer orientation and leadership program, making sure that you're talking about them during those particular events, especially orientation, perhaps purchasing pins for those who complete each of the edges. Maybe you can have a raffle, for a bigger prize for students who complete, do it based on the semester. And we talked about this too already. Congratulate students publicly on social media or digital messaging. And another idea I heard was chapters actually setting aside 1 meeting a semester to discuss the edges, their purposes, why it's important, what are the learning outcomes, and scheduling time in an open lab so that they can do it together as a chapter, as a group, to help each other through it. And I took down this quote that was really, I thought, said a lot. One of the ways we promote completion of the EDGE programs is by having at least one chapter meeting a semester dedicated to working on them together. This helps the members to learn about the programs. We help them get started, and members can ask questions on sections they may be stuck on. We are also able to directly relate the programs to our project and resources at our college, which is absolutely phenomenal. I'm thinking of college fair, like if you're going to have a college transfer fair on campus, what better way, you know, a couple of weeks before that is to encourage your students to complete Transfer Edge, or if you're having a career fair, you know, have them look at, you know, Employment Edge and to be ready for that college fair. And it all ties in to what goes on campuses. And so I'm going to pause. I'm going to stop sharing too. And ask, have any of you done anything with the edges that you feel have worked extremely well for you that you would like to share? I'm going to take a couple. Okay, I see one. We require competitive edge to be an officer and research edge to be on HIA team. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Anybody else?
Morgan.
Morgan?
Hi guys. I'd love to talk about, so that quote was actually for me, which I found, wow, cool. So we talk about our EDGE programs all the time, literally almost every single chapter meeting because they're so prevalent. And like we said, we have a massive transfer fair on our campus every single year. And so we have our students complete them over the summer if they at all possible and leading up to that transfer fair. And then we actually provide a handout of information on the colleges we know are attending our transfer fair that directly relates to the information they can find on PTK Connect as well. So that it relates all of the different programmings. Specifically with the healthcare edge, we have all of our students complete that as fast as possible because we focus on wellness a lot with our projects and that sort of thing. And that is what our campus focuses on a whole lot. So we have them, especially that self-care portion of the healthcare edge, it has related directly to quite a few of our students' actual classwork as well. So I highly recommend like seeing what your students are doing in their classes, because when they can relate it to their classes, that's when they're more motivated to get them done. So
yeah. Exactly. Anybody else? And I know Brian talked about this earlier, you know, you can go in and I encourage it. You know, it's one thing, you know, we could look at all these PowerPoints and see all the learning outcomes, but it's something different when you actually go in and do it. And not that I want to put more work on you, I really don't, but it makes it a little bit easier. Like you can definitely see what the connections are being made in each of the edges. And I'll be honest, you know, it took me about 6 months to do competitive edge, and it shouldn't have. I was being a little lazy about it. But research edge, I did. Took me about an hour, and I loved it. And it made me have a better appreciation for honors in action and whole. Like, not that I needed any more appreciation for it, but it was like, oh, where was this 10 years ago, right? Well, Reagan wasn't working with us 10 years ago. So, you know, it's just an awesome thing. And I just think that, you know, that's one of the ways to get them in. You know how you don't have to tell them that you have to do this before you can do honors in action, but sneak it in kind of sort of a way, you know, like this is going to help you. You'll be less frustrated if you take a look at this first. So there's lots of different ways. And I definitely believe that, you know, encouraging them and finding ways to give them recognition, you know, they complete all 5 within a year. Maybe you could have a special club, like, you know, the 5 for 5 club or whatever. And that provides them some sort of something, you know, I don't know, maybe it's their stole, maybe it's their tassel for graduation, maybe it's something like that. But I know the managing of that sometimes can be tedious, but you got to find a really good student that can keep track of all that stuff. But it does work, and they really love it, and they're proud of it. It is recognition, and it's beyond. And then they make that connection. that this is good for them and beyond we had this conversation. I had this conversation with somebody yesterday via email. It's not just the awards, it's beyond the awards, right? They might not know what they are going to walk away with PTK and their community college with, but we know, right? So much more. It's their experiences and all of that and everything that they are able to put in and get out of. Did I miss it? Oh, Angela got it. Okay. Yay, all 5. That's awesome. So yeah, so when you have a little downtime in the summer, maybe on the beach, you can work on it and you'll enjoy it. Okay, it is. Okay. All righty. Well, I can't think of anything else to add. I'm so glad that you were with us today. I know this was short and sweet and to the point. We are going to meet again on March 23rd. And that's going to be open to all chapter advisors and leaders. So encourage your officers and members to join. And we're going to be talking about organizing chapter leadership and engaging members. So we're going to take it to the next step. We wanted to have all this information to you first, and then we're going to do some activities and take a look at the activity guide for leaders. Registration is still open. And we will get a copy of this PowerPoint and this recording to you by the end of the week.
Patty, can I jump in?
Yeah, I'm done.
I was just going to say, and I know we've all got so many things on our mind. For those of you that will be with us at PTK Catalyst in Denver, just wanted to let y'all know we will have a massive wall of Edge ribbons. So of course, folks who have completed will be wearing their pins, but we also want to make sure that we have ribbons so that everybody can reflect and represent what they have accomplished. So if you have students that you're bringing, my suggestion is get them to complete one of these courses. And of course, I know if you have the Morgan Browns of your group, they may want to complete all 5 and get those there. So we do celebrate that as well. And of course, we have the Advisor Edge ones for those of you who have completed the Advisor course, and advisors can celebrate their ribbons as well. So I just want to let y'all know we will be pin and ribbon crazy in Denver, and we can't wait to see y'all.
Yay. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye.